And if you're anything like me, you love TV, you love books about fashion and shoes and purses. And today we're so excited to have internationally known best-selling author, TV personality, and two-time Emmy Nominated fashion and lifestyle producer of E! News. Kathryn Eisman is here today as a celebrity keynote speaker discussing the psychology of style. Kathryn was awarded Cosmopolitan Magazine's Fun, Fearless Female Author of the Year, How to Tell a Man by His Shoes, okay, and How to Tell a Woman by Her Handbag. What girl does not check out a handbag or a pair of man's shoes? Just saying. All right. Most recently, Kathryn held the position of fashion and lifestyle producer, and we are so excited to have her here today taking the StyleStage. So welcome and put your hands together for Kathryn Eisman. Thank you for being here. Thanks so much. Let me lift that up. Hey guys, how are you? You feeling stylish? All right, well thank you so much for having me. Let me do some adjustments here. A little bit like Elvis Presley. Fantastic. Well, as Alyssa kindly said, my name is Kathryn Eisman, and today I am talking about the psychology of fashion. The psychology of fashion. Who knew that fashion could be this deep, right? I think a lot of people dismiss fashion as being very superficial, all style, no substance, I think is a pretty well-known term. And if you love style, like I can tell you do, I'm checking you all out just so you know, you're also on stage, like your shoes, then you might also have been dismissed as being a little superficial as well. Has anyone here ever been called by their family or friends like, you care too much about fashion? Yes? I'm seeing some hands. Yes? Totally, all right? Well, you in fact are the most intelligent and deepest person, because fashion is very, very significant and a very key indicator. It's basically the external manifestation of our inner world, and also one of the key indicators of where we live and when we live and what society we live in. It's a wonderful, powerful tool that we can use. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that today and add a little bit of depth to fashion, but also it's still fun, don't worry. It's not too much depth. All right, guys. So what I want to talk about is the fact that, you know, that fashion is very much a reflection of how we're feeling every single day. There's a very famous fashion historian called James Laver, who used to be the person who oversaw the curations at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. Has anyone ever been there? Yes? And they have the most incredible historical fashion archives. And he said, which is very true, that clothes are never frivolity, they always mean something. They always mean something. So today I'm going to help you decode the meaning of fashion. It's a really, really powerful tool, not only to use when you go on a job interview, when you go on a date, when you go to the Starbucks and the person's giving you attitude and not frothing your latte the way you want it, and you can kind of get an understanding of why they're such pain in the ass, you know what? And also more interesting than anything is you get a better understanding of yourself, and that's what I'm going to give you today. So we're going to help you decode yourself a little bit. I've written 2 books. One was called How to Tell a Man by His Shoes, which is a terrifying title for most men. I remember every time I'd tell a man that, he would like slide his feet under like a desk and make excuses. I never wear these shoes. I'm like, well, someone's wearing them a lot because they're falling apart. And my second book was called How to Tell a Woman by Her Handbag. And we all know that our handbags are these very important kind of extensions of who we are as people. And I've been very fortunate that the books have been published in 15 languages and numerous countries, and I've been all around the world talking about the psychology of fashion and sharing my theories on all the shows, from Good Morning America to E! News and Style, and I think that people actually, once they open their mind to it, realize that they actually are making a lot of these assertions about people's style without even realizing it. So I'm kind of bringing that out within you. You're probably already thinking about this without knowing it. So I want to just say that as I look around here and I see what each of you are wearing, some ripped jeans, fuchsia cardigans, some fuchsia hair, over, a hat here, some kind of print. All of you are physical expressions of what your thought processes were this morning. Okay, so you are actually living what you thought this morning. So I've got a little exercise for you, okay? I want you to go back to this morning when you were getting ready, and I want you to ask yourself, what were you thinking when you got dressed? Does anyone remember what they were thinking when they got dressed this morning? Did they have a big night last night? You remember? What were you thinking? What's going to fit and feel comfortable? And look hot, I think, as well. I think look hot. So, okay, yes, for some people they want to be photographed. Am I right? Some people, they don't want to be spoken to by a heterosexual man. Just kidding. But everyone has a different thought process that went on in their mind this morning when they were getting ready. And sometimes, and most interesting, it's subconscious. And so when a woman says that she has nothing to wear today, obviously there's always things she could wear, but she's saying that she has nothing to wear that suits exactly how she's feeling and how she wants to project herself that very day. So that's what that comes from, and men don't get that, but I do. All right. So if you look at that, you look at the conscious and subconscious mind, there's an expression that's saying that clothing is the furniture of your mind made visual, and that's what it is. So why we pick one item of clothing above all else in a world of infinite choices at every price point? Because these days, as Karl Lagerfeld said, there's really no such thing as cheap fashion, You can look expensive and cheap at any price point. So why you pick one item of clothing above all else says so much about who you are, about your sense of self, about your sense of humor, in some people's case. I'm not naming names, and also about your priorities. Would you prefer the Celine handbag over food and rent for the month? And where you've come from and where you want to go. So it says a lot about all of those things, and the details are there for your picking. And I really believe that it's really not the grand declarations of who we say we are. It's the little details that reveal who we are. It's whether you're a pink person or a red person. For the men, are you a pointy shoed guy, or are you a square? You're not square. No, am I right? You're so not square. Are you round? Are you lace up? Are you slip on? Are you loafers? Are you suede? Are you leather? Are you brown, or are you black? Are you short nails, square, or are you long, lethal nails? As I say these things, you'll probably identify which person you are, and each of those decisions that you made is a reflection of what you prioritize. Long, lethal nails, sexy, glamorous, not so much practical, not understated. There's a whole variety of things that it reflects about you. So these are the clues. Do you know that we really need to look at these clues because humans are the only species known that live in a semi-constant state of self-delusion. That is true, a semi-constant state of self-delusion. Now, if you don't believe me, just look at your own Instagram accounts. If that's not a case of self-delusion, I don't know what is. I'm jealous of my own Instagram account. I want the life that I look like I'm having on Instagram. So, I want the skin that I have on Instagram, once I've hit it up with, 8 different photo app, So that's the truth. So we constantly lie to ourselves. So if we can get clues about ourselves and each other through our fashion, then all the better. Okay, a recent study by the Journal of Basic and Applied Psychology found that 60% of people lied at least once in a 10-minute period. At least once in a 10-minute period. Isn't that terrifying? So by the end of my speech, I would have lied to you probably about 1.5 times. Maybe when I said, what a well-dressed crowd. No, I'm just kidding. You are very well-dressed. I'm only kidding. You're a very well-dressed crowd. I could only say in the OC, where we all know that's not true. But yeah, no. So that is the truth. So the fact that we are constantly surrounded by liars means that we have to be able to decode things for ourselves. And what do people really mean? And that's how I'm going to help you do that today. All right. So pretty much, I think that clothing is like body language with a very helpful label attached to it. So that's how you should really think of fashion, as an extension of body language. It's not a new theory. I'd love to say that I pioneered it, and even though I have in recent years, the truth is that historically it has existed for a very long, long time. So let's start by looking at shoes. Where else to start? At the bottom. Hello? All right, cool, I'm back. Did I sound like I was rapping there for a second? Okay. All right, do you like my shoes, guys? Yeah? Yeah, you like them? You like them? Okay, good. All right, thank you. Okay, let's go. Is that better? Do I now have an American accent? All right. So you like my shoes. Now that had nothing to do with the speech. I just wanted to pay for them in compliments. I'm only kidding. You don't like my shoes. Oh, she does like my shoes. Okay. No pressure, don't worry. Okay, so let's look at shoes. Okay, the famous Christian Louboutin, the red-heeled shoes. Am I right? Who has a pair? I love that he put his hand up. I love. Who else has a pair of Christian Louboutins? Yes? Okay. Exactly. I love how my husband put up a hand. No, he doesn't have any. But anyway, so Christian Louboutin, we see a woman in Christian Louboutin, we see that red sole, you know, the heel of the shoe, and already it speaks to us. It says so many things to us immediately. The term a well-heeled person, a well-heeled woman is a reflection of that. It says it's like a silent secret handshake, that they are successful, that they are cutting edge, they're fashion, that they care about status, that there's a power applied to it. And while Christian Louboutin may be the first person to patent the red sole, do you know he actually patented it, by the way? You can't do that unless you're him. He was not the first French fashion king to do it. In fact, it goes back quite a long way, back to the late 1600s, early 1700s, another French king, Louis XIV. Louis XIV actually brought in the first red heels. Did you know that's true? Back in his day, he inherited an empire where they were trying to have absolute rule over the French sovereignty at the time. And so for his monarchy to have absolute rule, he had to devise a plan to take the power back from the very wealthy, very powerful, and independently so, landed gentries, which are the landowners and aristocrats of his time. And how did he do it? Well, he made a rule where only those in favor of the king, so only those in the favor of the king, were able to wear red-heeled shoes. So if you weren't in the favor of the king, you could not wear them. And so you'll look back at historical paintings from that time and you'll see some men, and it was men, by the way, not women, some men were wearing the red heels and some men were not. And no one, no matter how independently wealthy or independently powerful these landed gentries were, wanted to not look like they were in favor of the king. So what happened was, Louis XIV used fashion for people to trade in actual power for the perception of privilege. Just like women have traded in the actual power to walk from this side of the room to that in comfort for the perception of privilege and status of wearing the red heel shoes. That is true. So that is a little bit of a historical note. So fashion has always been used to separate people and to create boundaries, and also to use power, just like Fashion Week. You know, are you sitting front row, second row? What are you wearing? Who are you wearing? Who are you wearing? It's all about trying to establish ourselves and our status. And so it's an interesting tool that's gone back to that. All right, so I want to talk to you another thing about the fact that Louis XIV, his trend is very much alive. If you go to West Hollywood, which is where I live, obviously not born there, from Sydney, but if you come to West Hollywood and you go to Santa Monica Boulevard, you will see countless men, very well-dressed men, coming out of the closet, wearing heels, trying to win the favor of the king, and it's working because you call them queens. Am I right? Is that good? No, it's with love. Some of the best dressed people. All right, so it wasn't just him, all right? If you look at corsetry, for example, okay, the perfect example of fashion and psychology being interwoven, literally interwoven. If you look at a time in history when women have worn corsetry, it is also the same time in history where they're not only physical restrictions, but their freedom has been restricted. Not being able to vote, not having the same right to work and do all the other things they could. So So when you constrict someone's physicality, like with something like a corset, you also it also was reflected in the power that you had at that time as well. That's why Coco Chanel is seen by so many people as not just as a fashion designer, but if not even more so as a feminist, because she created the first non-corsetry clothing at the time, which used jersey, which was previously a fabric only used as underwear, which was scandalous at the time. Jersey, God, Diane von Furstenberg would shudder to think of that, and allowed women the freedom of movement to actually to get things done and not just be sitting there drinking tea and sniffing salts, trying not to pass out. So that's a very interesting thing as well. Now look at the waist training trend of today, right? Has anyone here looked into waist training? We've seen it everywhere. What does that say about what's going on in society right now? What is it? Are we trying to literally conform ourselves into a kind of constricted version of femininity? So it's interesting to look at how things come back into fashion and what they say about us and where we are right now. They don't just disappear, they come back. Hemlines. Who's wearing a short hemline? Who's got a great set of legs wearing a mini today? Imagine if you stood up at that point. I've got a great set. I wish someone would stand up. All right, well, hemlines. You probably heard of the hemline index. Have you heard of this? Okay, now this is a fascinating thing. Some of you might have heard of this, I'm sure. There was an economist called George Taylor in 1926 who created a bankable index where you could predict the outcome of the economy of the time by looking at the length of women's hemlines. So when mini skirts went up, so mini skirts came in, the economy and stock market also went up. And when hemlines went down, the economy also went down or crashed in some cases. And this was used as a bankable predictor of the economic status at the time. The truth. And the thinking being that when women were willing to spend more money and get less fabric, there was a kind of fiscal confidence that existed at that time. And when women wanted to get more for their money and were more conservative and holding onto their rations, and that's when there was a feeling of instability. So it was a great gauge of what was going on psychologically at the time that was reflected in fashion that actually manifested in the financial markets. So a fascinating thing there. Handbags. Who's a handbag lover here? Are we yeah? Love it. Got it. You got your, yep, Stella McCartney, yep, loving it. Okay, I love handbags. I have a 2-year-old and now I carry her. I'm like, that's pretty much my handbag. But I have so many handbags. I put it under research for my book and tried to claim it as a tax deduction unsuccessfully. But anyway, handbags are also a really interesting indication about the psychology of fashion as well and what they say about you. I really believe what the Michael Kors, quite a lot of Michael Kors I'm seeing around the place. I'm sure there's we're in the OC. Okay, so there's a lot of great brands here, but it doesn't matter what the brand is. It doesn't matter how much you spent it. It's all about the shape and construction. Now, handbags are very Freudian because there's the external and there's the internal. It's the outside of the bag, which looks impeccable in my case, and then the inside, which is pure anarchy in my case as well. The conscious and the subconscious mind. In fact, handbags are a place of great privacy. Do you know that the word purse itself is, in fact, I love looking at people looking at their bags, thinking about, what do I look in the bag? You got the backpack, someone who wants to get things done. You know what I mean? So a pragmatist, but at the same time wants to look chic and cute. So what we're seeing is that the handbags are a place of great privacy. For example, did you know that the word purse was derived from a 17th century word which actually was slang for a woman's private parts? Did you know that? So it's little wonder that women don't want you looking in their bag or their purse without asking permission. There was a study done that found that 60% of women would freak out if their husband, boyfriend, or even their best friend looked inside their bag without asking permission. I guess if we don't know what's in our bag, I guess why should anyone else? But that is a true fact. And but the history of the bag is a very interesting thing. Do you know the first bags were actually appeared were written about during hieroglyphics in ancient Egypt, and it was worn by men, and it was worn around the hip. It wasn't until the Middle Ages that the handbag as we know it came into being, and fashion as we know it to be. That's when handbags were gem encrusted, heavily embellished, And that was to denote, guess what, status in society. But the interesting thing was, it wasn't the status of the woman wearing it. It's the Middle Ages, guys. We're just getting there now. It was the status of either her husband or her father. So we were essentially accessories holding accessories. It wasn't until the Roaring 20s, the flapper era, which was an amazing time, that women actually kind of had their first kind of it bag. You know, the glow mesh, kind of gold mesh bags and all that kind of stuff is very much from that period. And that's when the handbag was able to replace the chaperone. And it served the same purpose. It carried money and paid for dinner, but it didn't answer back or tell you when to go home. And that is true. So the handbag has also linked to women's liberation in some ways, because you didn't have to have the chaperone come out with you as well. Interesting fact. In the world wars, whether it be one or two, there were often leather shortages. And that is actually where Gucci first came up with the cane handle that you're kind of very familiar with, which they kept. And it has become a kind of subconscious symbol of being glamorous, literally under fire. Also, what's interesting is that red lipstick sales spike during wars because it's a affordable indulgence, a little bit of a luxurious purchase in a time where there's so much hardship. In the 60s, bags became boho and slouchy, the same shape women's breasts went thanks to the burning of the bras. And that reflected the lax, kind of more relaxed kind of rules associated with women and sexual freedom and what we should or shouldn't do. I say we, but I wasn't around then, despite my appearance, no. And then it wasn't until the 80s that we saw things getting more rigid. And during the 80s, of course, it was all about being a woman in a man's world. It was about power dressing. Remember the 80s shoulder pads, you know, and working girl, and looking like a man, and, you know, and being tougher than a man, and all that kind of stuff, before women realized that women are much better at being women than men. But we also saw the resurgence, which hasn't gone away, of the classic Chanel 2.5 bag, which is very much like a briefcase. It's very boxy and is still very popular today as women in the workplace becomes not just a trend, but obviously something that is very real and part of our lives. So that's an interesting fact as well. And then we saw a few years ago the oversized bag. Who had like a massively oversized bag? Like the one that was like gonna send you into like traction for your back. Did you have that? Do you still have that? Does anyone still have that? No? All right, well that's when women wanted it all and they got it all and had to carry it around on their shoulders the whole time. And now we're seeing a trend towards the micro bag or the backpack, or bags that actually are more refined, more selective. So we're seeing that the feminism and our self-image and our role in society is still evolving, even from a couple of years ago, as we become more tailored. We don't want it all. We can get some help. We can outsource a little bit. And so we're seeing that reflected in bags as well. Now, do we have anyone brave enough to come up here and get a little bit of a handbag or shoe reading from me? Yeah? Come on up. Yeah, give her a round of applause. Hi, what's your name?
Zuma.
Zuma. Give Zuma a round of applause. She's brave and stylish. A good combination. All right, Zuma. Okay, so what should we do? Should we do a little bit of everything? Why not? Okay. All right. So Zuma is, without doubt, very stylish. Okay, so let's go through the 3 layers of how we might see someone. So we see Zuma. She's a chic, well-dressed, well-presented woman. Audrey Hepburn situation going on here. Someone watched a little bit of Breakfast at Tiffany when they were growing up. And that show. Okay, so that's the first impression we see. Okay, great, well-groomed, whatever. Then let's see, okay, so someone who likes the classics. So someone who is quiet. So what we see that in various things, because now I got you here. It's not, I can tell you everything. So we have the classic jewelry. So we're doing diamonds. We've got a bit of a two-tone there, but we're sticking to metal and diamonds is the only, we're not seeing any colored thing here. and we're seeing black and white, checkered, a little bit schoolgirl, but with like a very chic classic, okay? We got this bag with Stella McCartney, we've got the flat, practical, but old world in some ways and things. Okay, so what we see here is a woman who is quite loyal to things. You believe in investing in the best. You're not someone who's into necessarily the latest and greatest, and you have quite strong opinions about value and what you think is worth holding on to. And that comes with friendships, comes with relationships. You have some of the same friends that you had from your early childhood that you keep forever, and they're very close, and you don't have a huge circle of friends. You have a small handful, and you're very, very close with them. Is that true?
All true. That is all true.
So that's, okay, yes. Then what we see is someone who is quite disciplined. So we're seeing a little bit of restraint here, not just in the fabrics and choice of what she's done and the color tones of sticking with black and white, but there's an overarching element of discipline. I don't know whether she looks like a private school girl or whatever it is, but I would say someone who can be quite hard on themselves and can be very methodical, likes to write lists, likes to be organized. Nothing you hate more than chaos or people that are messy or disorganized.
That is true too.
Okay. We had a round of applause for me as well. Just say thank you. You got to ask for this stuff these days. So I'm just kidding. I ask my husband all the time. I don't get it very often. Okay. And then the final thing I would say was that, let me look at your finger. Okay, so you can look at everything. You can look at the nails. So she's got the short. Was she ever going to have the long kind of fang-like fingernails? It's never going to happen, right? And so you're seeing short, someone who gets things done. You're a worker as well. You believe in getting things done. And romantically, I would say your only challenge would be your expectations. You have to at least share them with the person so that you're not disappointed, because if you have these high expectations and they don't know what they are, they can not fulfill them, and then there can be miscommunication and disappointment. Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
Guys, that's great. All right, thank you. Anything else you want to say?
No, thank you so much. It was all right on point.
Thank you so much. You're great. All right, give her a round of applause. That's brave. Look at that. Years of therapy done in seconds. Okay. Does anyone else want to come up?
Thank you,
come
ladies.
on up.
Actually, we need to
move on. Okay,
we've drawn to the end of this particular segment.
Okay, cool. Well, let me just wrap up. Okay, cool. Can I just wrap up?
Of course.
Thank you.
Please,
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. All right, we'll do that afterwards, guys. I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming and listening to me speak. I hope you're having an amazing time here. Hope I haven't gone over too long. But again, my name is Kathryn Eisman. I'll be around for a little bit. So if you want to come up and ask me a couple of questions, I'd be happy to do that. Anyway, thanks so much, and thanks for having me.